We've got some of you here, others are still logging in, but I can go ahead and get introductions out of the way and welcome you to today's ESA webinar. It's entitled ClareVision Pro Surveillance at Pro Margins. ClareVision's edge-based features like built-in analytics and SD storage, easy setup and interoperability with popular brands can make it the right choice for pros like you. Today's session will focus on a deeper dive of ClareVision, including the current surveillance line included in the Value series and the Performance series for enhanced surveillance installs. I'm Jillian Bateman, ESA's Chief Development Officer, and I'll be facilitating our discussion today. Before we dive in with our experts from Clare Controls, I'd like to provide some tips for those of you joining us on your very first ESA webinar. Welcome. ESA, or the Electronic Security Association, is the largest and longest standing association serving the pro-installed electronic security and life safety industry. Our members are integrators, dealers, monitoring centers, and even manufacturers and service providers in the space. We are the voice of electronic security and life safety. If your company is a member of the association, thank you. And we hope you're taking advantage of your ESA benefits to leverage growth and connections for your team. If your company is not yet an ESA member, check us out. You'd be surprised at the power of membership. You can get a feel for all of the ESA benefits, including savings on business insurance, training, sales team coaching, certifications that satisfy state licensing, and in some cases are alternatives to NISEC at esaweb.org. You will be muted for the duration of this webinar, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. If at any point during today's presentation a question or a comment pops up, simply click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and I'll ensure we save some time to pitch those questions to our expert today. We'll also be recording today's webinar, so you can rewatch the on-demand session at your leisure and share it with your colleagues. Just give us until tomorrow and we'll email you a thank you with a link to the recording. We at ESA realize your time is valuable and we appreciate you spending some of that time with us today. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Brett Price. Brett leads the vision of Clare Controls. He's also the founder of the award-winning Tempest Pro Services, the largest integrator of home audio video systems on the west coast of Florida. Brett holds a master's degree in both business and electrical engineering from Cornell University. He co-founded Cheetah Technologies, a developer and manufacturer of large-scale telecommunications test and measurement systems. And as president, he grew the company to over 60 million in annual sales with 365 employees and system deployments in over 30 countries. Brett, let's dive in.
All right, thank you so much for that gracious introduction. We also have Jerry Bolda, who's a senior sales engineer. There he is. You can feel free to, we encourage you to ask questions as we go through. Jerry will answer them promptly as we go through the presentation. I'm going to handle the sort of boring part, which is a PowerPoint presentation. Jerry's going to do the fun part and show you how the system actually operates. And so he'll show it on a mobile application and so on and so forth. So without further ado, we'll go through this. And again, you can ask any questions you'd like along the way. And if one of them, Jerry, seems to be something we should share amongst the entire crowd, then by all means interrupt and speak up. So we'll try to keep this as brief. I'm going to try to get this to move. Try to get this as brief as possible. We'll go through the introduction, some setup and configuration. We'll show you some performance shots. We did spend a lot of time with this line. This is not a off-the-shelf white label line that's typically done. This is something that we have customized both the software and the hardware and tuned the video performance of the product. And the people that have used it for the first time, the very first thing they say when they turn it on and boot it up is, oh my God, look at the image at that price point. So we'd encourage you to go to Snap AV and purchase even one camera to try it out. And I think you'll be impressed with the video quality. We'll take you through the product line, a recap, and then we'll do the fun stuff with Jerry. So the product line is a reasonably sized product line. We don't attempt to fill every niche. It's a product line that's really targeted at residential, custom residential, SMB, and it is an NDAA compliant line, so it could be used in government applications as well. And we'll take you through the line now. whoops. So we broke the lineup into two series. One is a value series. As it implies, it's a lower cost product line. All of the products we build are stoutly built in cast aluminum housings, IP67 rated, and that goes right down to the cameras that are under $70 dealer cost at Snap AV. The value series are 2 and 4 megapixel cameras, turret and bullet form factors. Many of our cameras have built-in SD cards so that you can bring them out to a SMB application that just needs one camera. You can throw it into the facility and you can start recording motion events or smart events and play them back on the end user application. So we wanted to start the installation from a camera of quantity 1 and scale it up from there. We also have a series, a performance series, which basically adds to the value series features such as true wide dynamic range, Sony Starvis image sensors, and AI built into the camera to do smart motion and smart events such as line crossing, human detection, intrusion detection, loitering, and so on. So we break them up into 2 different price points, and I think when you check out Snap AV and you look at even the performance series, you'll be impressed with the aggressive nature of the pricing. So we try to really key in on a few differentiators. First of all, we did focus a lot on the end user experience. Again, we do focus on the SMB and the residential markets. And those users, we try to look towards some of the common DIY products and the ease of use of those products. So we really did focus on the user experience and driving simplicity into it. At the same time, we said, well, there's going to be a lot of third-party systems that are going to want to communicate and interact with our system. So we have complete driver support for both our systems. Control 4, it is an ONVIF system, so we'll talk about the interoperability in a moment. It scales. You can start from 1 camera with a built-in SD card and take it up to several NVRs with a VMS. It is a certified platform with ETL as well as NDAA. Again, I mentioned we do standalone installation. Every camera will support up to a 512 gig SD card or be connected to an NVR that we can walk you through in a moment. There are no hidden monthly expenses and no fees. And one of the targets that we had for the security industry was to give you an answer to the infamous Ring implementation, where you really don't get to participate in any margin. You surely don't get to participate in the recurring monthly. Now, because we don't charge recurring monthly, we do not prescribe that to our dealer partners. You want to put together a video surveillance monthly service fee, by all means do it. Because we don't charge you doesn't mean you shouldn't charge your customers. We're just trying to watch your operating expenses on a monthly basis and give you something powerful against the DIY competition. And again, when you log in and you understand the price points of the DIY products and you see the performance differences, which we'll show you in a moment, it's pretty impressive. And we give these slide decks out to people and they can use them in their marketing literature as well. So we basically have as sort of outputs of our ecosystem, ClareVision mobile application, which is a iOS, Android type application. We have drivers, a very robust driver set for Control 4, including the cameras and the NVR. And then of course, our system also ties into our ClareOne panel. You can bring up video, and we'll show you that. Jerry will show you that in a few moments, but you can do interactive video on the ClareOne panel. In terms of the cameras that we do support through the NVRs, we do support several. We support our legacy line. We support Luma from Snap AV. We support Hikvision and generally ONVIF-based cameras. And we've whitelisted and tested literally dozens and dozens of them against this platform, and it does work quite nicely. So we tried to be aware of the fact that you're going to be going into jobs that could have existing cameras in them and you want to add or migrate them to this platform. You slide an NVR in, you can take over the cameras that are on the job and you can bring them over to the Clare world or bring them to Control 4 world through the drivers that are available. So we did try to move, in our efforts to try to manage monthly costs, we did evaluate analytics in the cloud. We did evaluate, we're essentially largely a software company. We did evaluate cloud-based analytics. We also evaluated edge-based analytics and settled on, not to saying we won't broaden our perspectives in the future, but currently we're settled on edge-based analytics. And so there are a series of those analytics books we'll show you in a moment. All of the cameras communicate with the mobile application or the NVR with the mobile application over a free P2p platform, and it's free for life. So when you buy the camera, you've purchased a P2p license to connect to the mobile application. Again, we're looking at, managing your monthly expenses, which are key to the profitability of your companies. And these are NDAA compliant, which means there is no high silicon or Huawei in the product, no Hikvision, no Dahua. So when you look at the standalone operation of a camera, you can log into the camera locally through the web interface. Jerry will show you that. You can also connect to the camera via our P2p Cloud. You can connect to the camera a variety of ways through that P2p Cloud, and Jerry will show you a couple of cool ways that we do it. And you can do camera sharing and things of that nature through that P2p Cloud. If you want to bring in a third-party camera system, you could of course connect the NVR over the P2p Cloud. The cameras connect to the NVR using ONVIF and RTSP, and that is essentially how we connect to cameras like Hikvision, Luma, and others, so that they get brought into that NVR. That NVR then essentially, if you'd like, Clareizes that camera and makes it available to the mobile application. So you could have I have hanging on my house a large Hikvision PTZ camera, along with a series of these ClareVision cameras, and they all show up on that mobile app as though they were all Clare cameras, and they do it by proxy through that NVR. We do not connect directly to Luma and third-party cameras. In order to connect those cameras to our environment, you need to go through the NVR. Jerry will take you through some of this setup. This is relatively traditional. There's an IP search tool. You can go through and find the cameras on the web. You can log into the web interface. It'll make you change your password, and it's got a set of traditional camera configuration settings. You can set the camera to record locally and set the events so that they record locally and remotely, or just locally, or just remotely. We get asked all the time if I can use the SD card as a backup to the motion or event storage, and the answer is yes. You can have the camera store events locally, as well as the NVR storing, say, full-time video, as well as motion events on the NVR. If the NVR were to fail for some reason, or the network were to fail, the SD card will continue to store motion events locally, and you can of course access those through the mobile application. You don't need to remove the SD card to get to them. I can take you through the details here. In terms of intelligent analytics, it is based on human body or face detection, either one. And then there are 4 series of different smart event detections, and this is part of the performance series. So you can set up a region of interest, and you can detect a human or a face entering that particular zone for a particular number of seconds or minutes. So if a person were to enter that zone for 1 minute, I want to know about it. And so that is built into the camera, and they're quite effective. They've been extensively tested. Line crossing bidirectionally, A to B, B to A. Again, sensitivity settings. Again, it's been tested and quite effective. I've been an integrator for longer than I care to remember, 18 years, and I've been around since this stuff started, and it really didn't work. And so we were quite particular about making sure that this, when we market this to the dealer base, that it actually does work, and it works quite effectively. We do also have Loiter Detection, which is a traditional detection method, and as well people gathering. Detects a threshold of people in a zone of interest and alarms based on that information. Typically, that's an SMB type of a tool. So the NVR, again, you can scan. We have an IP search tool. You scan, you log into the NVR, change the password, and then there's a series of setups inside the NVR. You can get to the NVR. You can get to the camera settings via the NVR user interface, or there is a virtual host feature that is releasing later this week that will allow you to log into the camera directly through the NVR. You can also use the virtual host to use a third-party driver, like a Control4 driver, to access the camera directly through the NVR, as opposed to using an NVR driver, which is what we recommend, because the drivers for the cameras are more feature-rich, and the events that they propagate are more complete. So that's all built into these NVRs. We have a 4, a 8, and a 16 channel NVR, which I'll explain more in a moment. So when we look at the storage, there's 3 forms of storage. Again, we have the micro SD card that you can have in the camera. You can store full motion, smart events, full video, motion, or smart events. It's an or function. You cannot do all of them together. You can do either or. You can use this standalone, or you can use it with an NVR. The NVR can be configured to store either full-time video and smart events and motion events and alarm-based events. So many of the cameras have relay inputs and outputs on them, as does the NVR. So you can trigger an alarm recording based on a door opening or something of that nature, and you can trigger a recording to occur when that happens. We also have NVR-based cloud storage, where you can propagate any one of these events that occur within the NVR to propagate a single snapshot of that event to either Google Drive or Dropbox. And so that's our first step in making utilizing a relatively free service to store information. As we go forward, we'll do more live video. One of the questions is, what other analytics, vehicle detection and people detection? Right now, it is people detection and face detection. And all the cameras are NDAA, as well as the NVRs. That was the second question. Camera setup within the application is, I would say, brutally simple. You tap the plus sign, you tell it whether it's a camera or an NVR. If your phone is on the local network, you tap the devices on the network. It's going to go find the cameras or the NVRs on the network. It'll show you the UUID and the IP address of that camera. You tap it and enter the password, hit done, and you have absolutely just added the camera. Now, if you want to add a camera that is on, if I wanted to add a camera that's on Jerry, because Jerry's at his home right now, and I wanted to add a camera on his home network, I would do a remote add. So I would do the same thing. I would just add a camera and NVR. I would say it is on a network. He's going to send me his QR code. I'm going to scan it. I'm going to enter his password. And in under 5 minutes, I've just added 2 cameras and 2 facilities with very little fuss. And that's the totality of adding cameras and NVRs to this application. Now, those 2 that I just added happen to be cameras. If it were an NVR, when you tap an NVR, it'll give you a number of different NVR screens, quad views, 9 ways, or 3x3s, the prominent center, and so on and so forth. So there's a couple different views. That this is the camera view. So what we just did when we added that camera is we added the camera to the P2p Cloud that connects to that video, that mobile application called ClareVision. And in that mobile application, you can see snapshots, live stream, events, history. You can do some basic configuration. We were quite careful about the level of configuration we exposed to end users. After polling and talking to dealers, the consensus that we gathered, rightly or wrongly, and you can surely correct us over time, is that you go in and carefully set up the configurations for the smart events or the motion events. You set the calendars and so on. And then if we give the users the ability to step on those settings, they're going to do that, and you're going to get a service call. So we intentionally did not expose very many of the settings for event-based triggers in the mobile application. We left that more on the pro side, which is essentially the web UI. So that was a decision that we made proactively. When you use this product with our ClareHome system, you can access live video from the panel. You can also, we're releasing this week actually video doorbell, interactive video doorbell use. That's rolling out in the next 24 to 48 hours. And then we do something between the two applications. Now remember, I just showed you a video application called ClareVision. We have on the right here an application called ClareHome. We get asked all the time, why did you do this into two apps? Well, we don't really call it two apps. We call it a unified experience. And so I'm going to walk you through this, and then Jerry's going to show you it live. The analogy that we use, or the technology literally we use, is the same technology that Facebook uses with Facebook and Facebook Messenger. So when you go into Facebook Messenger from Facebook, it slides to the left and you're in Messenger. You're actually in a different application. When you hit the back button, you're going back to Facebook. We did the same thing because we wanted to allow people to have a standalone experience with the video application if you were not using our smart home security system, or if you were using them both together, we wanted them unified, and we'll show you how we did that. So when you're in the ClareHome application, you can view snapshots, you can process events, you can view history, you can configure settings. Inside the panel, you can do largely the same things. You can also take motion events or smart events from the cameras, and you can trigger smart scenes and actions inside of the home. So for example, if your porch camera detects a person on the porch, you can turn on the lights and you can set a siren off. So there's a number of things you can do. You can do any number of things you'd like with any one of the smart events or the motion events within the panel to trigger other sequences to happen. I'm not going to go through this in detail, but this is how you set it up in our backend called Fusion Pro. You literally just go to devices, you select a devices tab, and you scan for the devices on the network, add the credentials, and the cameras appear in the system. It takes about 3 minutes. When you do that, this is what you've created. You've created this path here, which is the camera to the panel, to the Fusion Pro Cloud. This is what goes to the central station for alarm reporting. That is the cloud that will be handling video verification in the future. We do not do that now, I want to be very clear, but it is this Fusion Pro Cloud that will be handling video verification in the future. This P2p Cloud, which is down below, this P2p Cloud is really interactive, used for strictly the mobile application. It's extremely responsive. When you launch a camera view, it comes up in under 2 seconds worldwide. So when we just did that, adding the ClareVision camera to the panel, we added this link, not this link. That link was added prior when we put the ClareVision app together. So when you bring it all together, this is the user experience. So you have the ClareVision application, and you have ClareHome. You can see there's 2 cameras in the ClareHome application. This is the application that most people are going to use every day. This is how they control their home and their security systems and so on. If somebody were to tap an icon in the ClareVision app, ClareHome application, it would bring you to that camera within ClareVision automatically. You can go into that, look at a live view, and you can go and look at events and configurations. If it happens to be a product with a speaker or microphone, you can tap and listen and that kind of thing. Then what you do is you simply hit the back arrow and it takes you back to the ClareHome application. So Jerry's going to show you that live. It works very well and it's pretty cool. The cameras and the NVRs do have an automated OTA service. So for those cameras that are exposed and those NVRs that are exposed to the internet, if there is a firmware update that's available, it will notify the end user. They hit accept the update, and it will automatically update any the camera or NVR that they've accepted that update for. So we tried again to minimize where we can the amount of work you have to do in maintaining these systems for your customers. We do have a Control4 driver for both the NVR and the cameras. With the virtual host releasing, we do expect the ClareVision camera driver to be most prominently used, and we would encourage dealers to do so. It'll give you access to more robust features, including smart events and things of that nature. You can see snapshots, live view, and all events within the Control4 environment. And of course, you can create rules and scenes and so on and so forth, automations inside of Control4 based on those events. So here's the coming soon is coming like in days. And then within about a week and a half, smart event support will be in. So if you were to go to the store today and purchase a camera, the smart events are a coming soon feature in terms of the event log. They're in the cameras. They do propagate to the Clare home system. They propagate to the Control4 system. They're going to be in our mobile application within about 5 to 10 business days. And then we are releasing we're making the product OVC compatible so that you can log into the product through an OVC Pro device, whether it be an OVC Pro or it be a Control4 processor, or it be a Arachnus router that has OVC Pro in it. You can go into that device. You can log into any one of these devices and affect the configuration remotely from the convenience of your office or your truck or wherever you happen to be. So what I'd like to do now is really just take you into camera performance and show you, we spent literally 3 months on this. The 16 channel supports the RAID 1 mirroring. The 4 and the 8 are single channel NVRs. They do have USB based support. The 16 channel has 4 drive bays as well as a SATA port on the back of it, so it can expand relatively arbitrarily large. What we did is we took and did a real life comparison. We spent a lot of time with these cameras on the video quality both day and night. And as I said, the performance series are Sony Starvis based sensors. They're quite extraordinary, but they need to be tuned properly. So what we did is we took a couple of our favorite consumer products up here. Down here in the lower left is our sub $70 value series 2 megapixel turret or bullet. And this is the sub $90 4 megapixel value series product. This is our performance series 4 megapixel, and that's the 8 megapixel performance series. So, whoops. All right. So one of the things to notice is that when you get in, you'll see that the consumer cameras, the video quality is absolutely horrible. There's no other word for it. This is not even close to the coloring of that landscaping in that area. This over here is probably the best color rendering of what the reality of that imagery is. And you know, they're all quite clear and quite substantial. These are absolutely horrid. When you get into some of the more challenging like a nighttime experience, this is a ring experience. That the shot's about 40 to 50 feet away. That's a Nest camera at exactly the same location. This is our 2 megapixel value series camera. Whoops, it's our 2 megapixel value series camera. That's 2 megapixel and that's 2 megapixel. And so these cameras are about $199 a piece. And I encourage the dealers to talk to customers about the consumer cameras really do sell on the user experience, and I understand it, and they're amazing at it. But it doesn't much matter if you've got a great user experience if you can't see the person in the image, or the image is useless. And when you get into some of the evening views or some of the more challenging lighting conditions that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, then this really starts to stand out. When you take a look at these images down here, that building in the back is about 150 feet from the camera. And there's lights on that building, which is what is illuminating that and making that available. We don't have 150-foot IR, but you can see the clarity of the person standing here, and you can see the clarity of what's going on in the background. When people purchase our cameras, the very first comment I get every single time is, I cannot believe the image quality for the price. And so I'd encourage you to try it and take a look at the image. They're absolutely stunning. And these are cameras from a well-known, very large international manufacturer of cameras, and the pricing is literally 40% higher than ours. This is another way to look at cameras, and this is a 0.1 lux. This is right at the breaking point of where your Starvis sensors are going to really start to shine versus your non-Starvis sensors. This is kind of that breaking point. In 0.1 lux, when you walk into this room when this test is being run, you with your naked eye can't see that eye chart. The cameras can, but you cannot. You see a splotch on a wall that give you an idea how dark it really is. This gives you an idea what the performance, that's that dark in the room, and these are still operating in not in IR mode. And you can see the color wheel and the quality of the eye chart is quite clear. The value series, you can see we don't have a Starvis sensor. These are your consumer products, which are borderline ridiculous. And then these are your very large international manufacturer, which are generally pretty good. And these are also Starvis sensors. They're relatively comparable to here, but we've done side by side, and we do believe they're slightly better. This is the same view in a daytime shot. And what you look for here is the ability for the camera to really render the proper color. And so you look at the challenge at these color wheels, and these graphics are really designed to trip up cameras. And you look carefully at these here, and then start looking at what you're dealing with here. And it's a kind of a night and day difference. And when you consider this camera is a sub $70 camera, and that camera is $200, it starts to stand out. And I've had many dealers ask me to send them these charts so they could show these to their consumers. And this shows you that color wheel up close. So this is the product line in summary. The value series are fixed lens. The performance series are also fixed lens. These are DWDR. All our cameras are PoE. These are basic motion detection, 16 and 32 gigabit SD card, 2 streams. All cameras are available in black and white. When you get to the performance series, we add the dome form factor. We add digital wide dynamic range, Sony Starvis. You saw the difference in the images. The 4 megapixel camera has a 32 gig SD card, and we moved to 3 streams, and we use the 3rd stream largely for control systems integration. And then of course we have a value series, performance series varifocal. And these are motorized autofocus, and these have a retail number of around $250, and that's retail, not dealer. Our NVRs, we did something a little unique here. Our 4-channel NVR has 4 ports. That's why we call it the 4-channel NVR, but it supports 9 cameras. We did this because I cannot tell you how many times that I got burned selling one of my sales guys selling a system to a customer and packing up the NVR full, and the guy wants to add 1 camera, and that 1 camera ends up costing $600 because I've got to change the NVR out. So we basically created and there's no extra license fee. The 8-channel NVR will support 16. Now, you do have to watch the bandwidth in and out of these NVRs. You can't just saturate one of these 8-channel NVRs with 16 4K cameras and get them all streaming all at the same time. Having said that, we have load tested every one of these NVRs. The 16-channel NVR is releasing this month in June. It's shipping to SnapAV literally right now. It will support up to 25 cameras. It does have 4 ports internally for hard disk drives. Each one supports up to 4 terabytes. I'm sorry, that should be 8 terabytes. Each one supports up to 8 terabytes. That's wrong. It does have a SATA port on the back as well. It ships, this does, and those are what they ship with. The 4-channel ships with a 1, 8-channel ships with a 2, and a 16-channel ships with a 4. All of them support up to 8 terabytes per port. This I put in, we won't review this. We put this in case you were to take this and download this, or you want to take the recording. This is in there for your convenience. It's got a lot of the particular specifications on it. These are ONVIF S&T certified, they're ETL listed, and NDAA compliant. Go. And there's the performance series. The main difference in the performance series, the Bullet does have a 60-meter IR range, so it is a long range, and that's why it's in the product line that way. It's in the product line really for its infrared range. The other ones are 30 and 40 meters. And these are the NVRs, which we covered briefly. We do have a line of SD cards that are at SnapAV, 32, 64, and 128 gigabyte. They're coming down every year. Although this year is a little nutty with the Asian markets. So they're going up this year, but we bought a whole year's supply and we're locking down the pricing and everything for the year. So when we wrap this up, because I want to get this over to Jerry, I'm just about on time. We wanted to create a cool experience that was simple. When you download the ClareVision app, if you were to try one of these cameras, you will find it to be very simple. And usually with end users, that's a plus, not a minus. It's effective, but it is simple. We wanted to create a unified experience, and Jerry's going to show you that. Complete drivers for both our systems and Control4, and we wanted to be able to interoperate across our legacy products, Luma products, Hikvision products, and ONVIF cameras. Should you step into either one of two things, you step into an application where you need a nice large PTZ camera that we don't have in the lineup, that's fine. Buy a Luma or a Hikvision product and put it into the job. It will work just fine with the system. And then we, again, that flexibility was really, really critical to us. We wanted to be able to scale it. We wanted to be able to give, especially the residential security guys, when you've got you want to put one camera on a house, you want to give them a rich experience. How do you get that done? Well, an SD card built into the camera, and a full experience on the mobile application, including the storage of a presentation of events, and then the tie back of events to the smart control panel. Seemed like a pretty interesting way to go. And then we can scale up to NVRs from 4 to 8 to 16. We will be releasing in the midsummer, we'll be releasing a free downloadable BMS that will let you join multiple NVRs together, pick random cameras off of different NVRs and present them onto a single screen for largely SMB applications. When you look at Snap AV, I think you'll agree it's priced right, and we do protect your margins. We are very careful about ever letting any of these price points out. We do not sell on Amazon. We do not sell. We have one distributor, and that distributor is extremely careful about communicating retail numbers, wholesale numbers, or otherwise. The price you pay is private business, and you can mark these up the way you see fit. And then we did bring quite a few powerful features to the edge, whether it be the low light capability, true wide dynamic range, onboard storage, and the smart events. And again, NDAA and ATL listed. So that's kind of it with the sort of boring part of this. I'm going to let Jerry go. I'll click on the Q&A. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Jerry, you want to take it?
Yes, I will. Thanks, Brett. Before I jump into that, we had some really good questions here. Really quick before I get into the demo. Is the data recorded on the SD card encrypted? I believe it is. I don't think you could just go rip out the card and slap it into a PC or something and start watching the archived video on it. I believe, Kevin, you're the same one that was asking about different configurations for redundancy with the 16 channel NVR. I believe it may give you those options, and it does have 4 bays in it, as I just had the guys in the lab check it out. So it does allow you to put in 4 hard drives into that 16 channel NVR. And I believe once you've got multiple hard drives in the NVR, it will give you a few options for configuration. So we can verify that as well. So Brett's going to be looking at the Q&A stuff. I'm going to share my screen and do a quick demo so you guys can see what this stuff's all about. All right, hopefully you guys can see my screen. The first thing I wanted to show, I just opened up Internet Explorer. You can see I've got a couple of tabs open. The first tab, this is one of our 8 megapixel performance series cameras. You can see it's obviously looking at the driveway here. This is a live view. Looks really, really nice, even at nighttime, I can tell you. I see the little red dot blinking away over here. Every time there's motion in a certain intrusion area that I've got selected, it will record to, because this is connected to an NVR. But more importantly, I wanted to just tool through some of these settings to so you guys can see what it looks like. In the configuration area, most of the stuff, it's the same as you'll find in other NVRs. It's very easy to set up. You have storage options where you can set this up to record just motion only. If you want to record smart events only, you can set all of that stuff up in here. It's rather easy to configure, even your network settings. As Brett mentioned, we do have our own IP search tool. That tool is also built right into the NVR and into the app. So when you go and open up the app for the first time, which we'll do here momentarily, that will go out and find your cameras automatically. So, if you have them on the same network, you can it'll find them automatically. You don't need to scan the QR codes or anything like that. And also it's built into the NVR, which we'll get into on the next tab over here. So if I go down to the events, somebody was asking about the smart events. What types of events are there in the analytics for the performance series? You can see here, there's detection mode. We've got humanoid detection. And then once that's enabled, you have intrusion. You have line crossing. So you can move these squares around, or you can configure these. You can also configure multiple areas. So I believe there's up to 4. So if you had an area here, maybe you wanted to see when somebody's coming up the sidewalk, maybe I wanted to know if somebody was going to break off or hits the mailbox, something like that. I could circle out that area as well. So you have 4 different areas that you can set up. Same with all of these: line cross, loiter, and people gathering. One thing I found interesting, you can actually set up the loitering for how many seconds somebody's standing in your driveway. Maybe you don't care if somebody's running by, or if a neighborhood kid or something is riding a scooter through or down the street. If somebody's there for multiple seconds, though, you can set that up and it'll actually send you a notification. Or if you're using an NVR, you can have that record to the channel on the NVR to the hard drive. Same thing with the people gather detection. You can circle your area, and there's an area here going from, I believe, 1, I think it maxes out at 50, 100. So this will actually tell you if there's people gathering in that area for any amount of time. So you can outline those areas. It'd be good in maybe a store, maybe in front of an ATM or something like that. So it does work really well. I know Brett and I have both tested most of these options that are in here. So next tab over, this is the NVR. I've got a couple of the channels that are configured. I put a couple of different cameras on here just so you can see. I've added the driveway camera. This camera up here is actually one of the bullet cameras. I just wanted to have a couple of different cameras here. And the one on the right that's looking at the pool there, that's actually a Hikvision, one of the older cameras, but it works just as well. It comes in, I can do all of the recording right from the camera. It's pretty easy to configure that as well. This one is sitting out on the network, so I did just point at the IP address, put in the username and the password, and I was able to pull the camera right up. I'm going to jump over to configuration so you guys can see what this looks like if you were to set up multiple cameras with the NVR. Like I said, if I click on channel and I click on camera, this automatically goes out and it starts searching the network for different cameras. As soon as I click add, it pretty much has the IP search tool built right in. So you don't have to have the search tool open in a different tab or on a different computer or monitor. This will go out as soon as you click add, and it'll find other cameras that are on your network. I can see there's a couple other cameras here, but I'm not going to add those. But if I was going to add anything that's ONVIF compliant, all you need is the username, password, and the port number. You'll be able to get those to come into the NVR. So pretty neat. Another thing in the NVR, if you have a camera, performance cameras that have smart events enabled, you do not have to go out to each individual camera to configure the smart events. It's built right into the NVR, which is awesome. So if you've got, all performance series, or maybe a couple of the performance series and a couple of value, this will know which ones are value and which ones are performance series. And then this drop down, it'll only give you the options for the smart cameras that are out there, the performance series. So right from the NVR, I could do the line crossing, regional detection, loitering, and people gathering. I can save my areas. Then, of course, you have a different options, what you can do once it's enabled. You can make the annoying buzzer go off, send emails, record to a channel, and so on. So I got a few more things I'm going to cover here, so I'm going to whip right through here. I want to pull up the mobile app here. I've got my phone plugged in to the computer. As soon as I open up the app, you can see there's no cameras here. I've got them connected to the network already. So once your phone is connected to the network that you've added the cameras on, if I'm doing a local installation, I just tap the plus button to add a camera or the NVR. I'm going to hit camera. The device is on the network. This is going to go out, like I said, it's going to search and find any cameras that are on the network. So I know the IP addresses just because I've been, playing with the cameras, but I know that the 231 is that driveway camera. The one above it is 155. I'm going to wait and configure that one as an NVR because that one's got multiple channels associated with it. So once I tap on that, it shows me the UUID up at the top, which is the unique serial number of the camera. When configuring a camera or the NVR, the password is always going to be the first 6 digits. We do recommend you go into the web UI and change that the first time, as it'll prompt you to do so. So I'm going to tap here, put in my password. tap done. And just like that, it'll add it in. If I tap here, it should pull up the stream. And that's done. You can see it's a pretty nice, clean looking stream. So to do the NVR, I'm just going to go back out to the main screen. Tap the plus. This I'm going to do NVR. The difference is with the NVR, it's going to recognize multiple channels. So I picked NVR instead of camera. Again, I'm going to just type in the password. Tap done. And the first time you tap, it says, okay, we recognize that there's cameras here. Which ones do you want to view? So I'm going to do channel 1, 9, and 10. Click save. And you can see those are the exact cameras that we saw through the web UI. If I double tap one of these guys, it'll pop open to a full screen. Really, really, really simple. You can toggle between SD and HD. I mean, it's really, really simple. So you say, hey, if somebody shares a camera, or maybe I have a camera that's set up and I want to do a remote camera. Maybe I'm not on site, but I have the QR code. You can do that just as easy. If I go back out again, tap plus, go to camera, devices on the network. It's going to search the network and say, hey, you know, the ones that are not bold anymore, it knows that it's added those cameras, but you can go in and you can search your files for the camera, like a QR code like this one. If I say choose, it'll pull it right up just like the cameras on your network. I could enter that password and information, and I don't actually know where that camera is right now. It's probably in the office at my desk. So anyway, you do have the ability to scan the QR code and add the cameras if you're not right there on site, or if you're sharing a camera with someone. I'll go back another screen. If I did want to share one of these with Brett, there's a little button down on the left-hand side. You just tap it. I could send him that QR code. As long as he has the username and the password, he'll be able to share that camera and he'll be able to log in and see the camera. We've done that a couple times for when we were getting started with all the cameras. He was just looking at some of the options, some of the smart events, and I was able to give him access. It took a whole 30 seconds or so. So, all right, that's the app. You can also, with the NVR, since it's recording events, I can easily go in here and view the events on any of these cameras just by tapping and going out to any of the events here and tapping on them. We have a brand new app that's releasing probably within the next couple of weeks that has a few more options in here that you'll be able to use as well, just making it a little bit easier to navigate. So, all right, one last thing I want to show is just how this thing integrates with our ClareOne system, the ecosystem, like the ClareOne panel. So what I want to demonstrate here is I'm in Fusion Pro. For anyone that's been using the Clare software, this is Fusion Pro. It's a cloud-based programming tool. This is what I'm going to use. This is the ClareOne panel that I have set up right here next to the desk. I'm going to just go to add devices, go to cameras. This is a new ClareVision, but you can see there's also, you can add doorbell, ClareVision Plus, which is our older cameras, legacy cameras, Luma, and so on. I'm going to click this guy. It's going to search the network. And in the meantime, I'm going to jump out of this app and pull open our ClareHome app so you guys can see. And I can see in the background, this has already found that 8-megapixel camera. Put a checkbox here. Put in my credentials for the camera. And this will process it. If I put the password in correctly, it should start adding it to the system. Now in the app, the system already recognized that I added a camera, so it immediately pops up and says, hey, a camera's been added to your system. Do you want to add it as a tile on your screen in the ClareHome app? The answer is yes, I do. So I'm going to add that as a tile. This is going to pull up. You can see it just pulled up a snapshot. I know that there was a slide in Brett's PowerPoint there that showed what we call deep linking. A good comparison to this is when you're using like the Facebook app. If you have the Messenger, Facebook Messenger, the two of those apps kind of go one with one another. You can tap on it like this, and it'll open up that camera in the other app. These look really, really close to the same as far as the colors and things of the app. So it's really hard to tell that we're actually in a different app. One of the reasons we did this is now I can go full screen. I can check things out if I wanted to get into events. I can hear noise because this does have a speaker in the or a microphone in it. So, I mean, you have a lot of different options. To get back to the app, I just tap up at the top there and it goes right back again. So that's how easy it is to add a standalone ClareVision camera to our ecosystem. You say, well, what about the NVR? We have enabled the NVRs as well. Back to cameras and 8-channel NVR. You do need the IP address, which you could get from the IP tool, search tool, which we have on our help center. Just going to put that in, put in my credentials again. Tell it what channels we want to add. I'm going to say create device. And again, I'm going to jump over to the mobile app. We should see these pop up. So while that's adding those channels, you can easily go in here. You can actually change the names of these so they don't just say channel 9, 10 or whatever. You can change the names of these right through Fusion Pro or through the app. So if I change that, pop open the app, you'll see that that's already changed here. And I'll add this guy to it. And then does this deep linking work with the NVR? I'm going to tap the camera, even though it's connected to an NVR. And yes. So just like that, you can see it's ready to go. Switch this over to HD. To go back to the app, head right back over, and so yeah, it's really easy. They've done a lot of work, made it very, very simple to add these cameras to the Clare ecosystem. And don't forget, these also work with control for both the standalone cameras and the NVRs. So I think we have a couple minutes left, about 5-6 minutes left for if we wanted to open this up for questions. We can probably do that.
I want to remind you that you can click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your control panel. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, you can comment your questions over for Jerry and for Brett. I do have a couple here for you. Are there any 180-degree or 360-degree cameras coming?
Sorry, need to unmute. We are looking at a 180, not a.
Unless my speakers are off here. If we were speaking a minute ago.
I can take this. There is no 180 or 360 on the horizon this year. There are a number. We are releasing 8 megapixel varifocals, color at night, the VMS, and Wi-Fi cameras.
Thank you. There was a slide about cloud storage options. Was that just for motion snapshots, or can you actually upload motion video clips?
Today it's motion snapshots. The direction we're taking that is to upload full motion video clips. So the step one was to do snapshots, and that's done.
Got a few in here as well. How many simultaneously remote viewers are possible per the NVR?
How many remote viewers for the NVR? How many of you had?
We've had upwards of 15.
Yeah, I don't know that we know the upper limit. We do stress test the systems, and we do put upwards of a dozen to 15 clients on the NVRs at the same time. That client could be a mobile application, a web UI, the HDMI console, control 4 drivers. So we tend to load these things with varying conflicting image requesters, and we get upwards of a dozen to 15 of them going at the same time.
Thank you. Who is the OEM, and are they NDAA compliant?
We use more than one ODM, and they are NDAA compliant.
Will other camera manufacturers work with the ClareVision line?
Yes. So the way you do that is you would use one of our NVRs, and as long as that product were truly ONVIF compliant, when the NVR scanned the network, as Jerry showed you on his demo, it would, for example, one of the cameras he scanned and found was a Hikvision camera. So it will scan and find any ONVIF camera, Dahua, Axis, Hike. If it sees ONVIF and it responds to an ONVIF command, it's going to show up and ask, and you just enter the ONVIF username and password. Now, for Hikvision cameras, for those of you that are familiar with it, for some of these cameras, the ONVIF user is actually disabled. And the private protocol is what it broadcasts. So for some manufacturers, you do need to go in and turn on the ONVIF feature or the ONVIF user, as it's called, within the camera. And Hike is one of those brands that you have to do that for.
What special networking requirements are there, like port forwarding and assessing the camera's NVR remotely?
So there are not. And I'll be very specific. For the mobile application, uses a technology called P2p. So there is no port forwarding and no, you don't have to punch a hole in the router or anything of this sort to access the video from the mobile application. If you want to access the actual web console of the NVR, then you can use dynamic DNS, or you can use port forwarding, VPN, any number of networking technology will work. If you're simply trying to access the system for maintenance and support purposes, we do recommend you use a OvrC enabled product, whether it be a Control4 processor, an OvrC Pro, or an Arachnus router on the site, and you can log into the camera remotely without opening, the camera or the NVR remotely without ever opening a port in the home or the business.
I think we've got time for another question here. How do you add multi-channel cameras?
It would. So I'm going to be honest and say we have not done that. And so I expect that knowing what I know about ONVIF, that would add as multiple channels in the recorder, but we could certainly test that.
I think that's about all the time we have for questions. I do want to thank Brett and Jerry from SnapAV and the Clare's controls team for their presentation. As you know, SnapAV and Clare are strategic partners of ESA. So they're leading innovative new ways for pro security to compete with DIY and to exceed customer expectations. Our partnership means they put their investments right back into the pro install channel. So to Snap and to Clare, thank you. Any parting words, Jerry, Brett?
Give us a try. I'm sorry, Jerry. Give us a try. I can tell you universally, when people buy, whether it's the sub $70 camera or the 8 megapixel camera, people are absolutely floored with the image. So just give it a try, take a look at it, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when you see it.
I was going to say the demo, it looked easy, I would think. I did nothing special except connect those cameras to the network. I mean, to use this app and to get those into the Clare ecosystem, it's really, really simple. So, like Brett said, buy one or two of them, just give it a whirl, see if you like it. Look at the image quality. I think you'll be happy.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, and to everyone on the call. We'll see you on the next ESA webinar. Have a good one.
Thank you so much.